What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Renegade Marquee on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me, we've got Hayden.
Hello.
We've got Tyler.
Hello, good sir.
And making his Renegade Pop Culture debut, please welcome Tommy Hughes.
Thanks, Michael, for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and it's going to be a fun night talking two very polarizing movies that have really made the rounds this week. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. The films in question this week are Halloween Kills, the sequel to the 2018 legacy sequel of John Carpenter's Halloween. And we've got a new Ridley Scott epic, The Last Duel, starring Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Adam Driver, and the lovely Jodie Comer. We're going to start things off first with Halloween Kills. Like I said, this is the sequel to Halloween 2018, itself a direct sequel to the 1978 original. Just like the 2018 film, this was directed by David Gordon Green from a screenplay written by David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, and Scott Teems. The nightmare isn't over as unstoppable killer Michael Myers escapes from Laurie Strode's trap to continue his ritual bloodbath. Injured and taken to a hospital, Laurie fights through the pain as she inspires residents of Haddonfield to rise up against Myers. Taking matters into their own hands, the Strode women and other survivors form a vigilante mob to hunt down Michael and end his reign of terror once and for all. So, Tommy, I'm going to start with you since you had very strong opinions about this movie. First of all, I want to ask, what did you think of the 2018 film, and how does it compare to this one?
Oh, wow. The thing about the 2018 film, when they announced that it would be retconned or reimagined into a new direction for the franchise, being a direct sequel to the 1978 original, and everything would be ignored completely. I had this weird feeling that I was willing to give it a chance, but at the same time, I really felt this weird, unsettling feeling because H2O is one of my personal favorite films, and it has the feeling of nostalgia and the perfect continuation and final showdown between protagonist and antagonist. And when you sat there and you watched it, it just felt like an unfinished mess. Like the writers were more focused on, they were too distracted by the nostalgia of the Halloween lore to really tell a compelling story. So I was not looking forward to Halloween Kills at all. And in the sense of the way I can describe it from a compare and contrast standpoint is like the nostalgia was on full display in Halloween 2018, but you really felt as if the screenplay was just hammering it down the throat of the viewer in the vein of a Die Another Day, for example. But that's Citizen Kane compared to Halloween 2018.
Interesting.
Strong words.
What was that?
That's very strong words because Die Another Day is pretty awful.
Oh, no, even then you felt that experience was still respectful homage, even though you still felt the hammering down. Like it really didn't feel, it really felt like a decent story in the vein of in that franchise, the James Bond lore. But leading right into it, that is why I found Halloween Kills to be such a welcome surprise. I really thought that this was something that really took the Halloween lore and took it into a new sense of direction that really helped evolve the story in a manner which we've never seen before. And that is not necessarily how the effects of the shape, the actions of the shape, affect our films, the story's primary primary protagonist, excuse me, it felt like it felt like the effects really showcased the entire setting as a whole with the actions of Michael Myers. And as the story progressed, we really were able to experience Tommy Doyle, Lindsay Wallace, Lonnie, and others. It really showcased that level of that. It really showcased something that was new. It was different. It was fresh, which is something that the Halloween lore really needed after the 2018 film.
You know what? It's been a couple of days since I saw the movie. I saw it the Thursday night preview, and because I've been busy, I haven't had time to rewatch it. But the more I think about this movie, I think the more I actually really start to like it. And I think one reason why is because this movie is probably one of the first, at least the first, like, not including some of the other sequels, that Haddonfield really becomes a character in its own right. And to bring up the Last Jedi comparisons again, this almost kind of like demystifies in some ways Laurie, like the Strode's relationship to Michael Myers, while still keeping them as like central protagonists, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Hayden, your general thoughts on I guess both Halloween movies post 2018.
So, I have never really cared for the route the franchise took when they decided to make Laurie literally related to Michael Myers, because I just felt that really took away any form of creep factor for why he was following this person around. And I just think making it so literal kind of ruined it a little bit for me. I still enjoy a lot of the sequels, but so I was actually pretty relieved when 2018 came out and they were able to do something like that, even though I will admit it does tend to lean very heavy on being kind of been there, done that to this 1978 film. And what I appreciate about this one is how it does take it in a completely different direction that I wasn't quite expecting. And one thing that I will compare it to is actually Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Yes.
Which I don't think is very good, mind you.
No.
But it does have the caveat that I think they at least tried something different than the 2007 remake that he did, which is just the original movie, but trashier and worse. And I do appreciate when they're able to do that. And overall, I had a pretty good time with this one. I don't think the pacing is the best, and some of the writing is a little on the clunkier side, but it is really growing on me. It is really growing on me, like, the more I think about it. And I find it interesting that so many people say, well, I liked the first half and then I hated what they did later on. I'm the
complete opposite.
I was like getting really invested starting with the second half. And that was when I was like, oh, I think I actually do like this a little more than I was at first.
I want to say real quick, I don't mean to cut you off, but the comparison to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, I had the exact same thought. I feel that this is, at heart, I feel that this was the story that Rob Zombie had the desire to tell, but for whatever reason, it opted to go down a completely different path. And I think that would have been a better fit for like a Friday the 13th type of movie. But
I've heard that before, people comparing this to Friday the 13th.
Absolutely. But then of course this is but then of course Halloween Kills is a 10 times better than Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, even though I mean it's at the same time a great exercise to study for filmmakers everywhere when it comes to story direction and franchise lore.
Oh yeah. Tyler, your take?
I don't know where to start really. I thought 2018 was actually a pretty good Halloween film, at least compared to the sequels. Those sequels run the gamut from being somewhat enjoyable to nearly unwatchable. I thought it was a pretty good idea just to make it as direct sequel to Halloween, not Halloween, but Halloween. And the fact that they got rid of all the connections to the sibling, yeah, that can go away. That's great. The best part of the movie is actually the score, because John Carpenter came back to do the score, and it was exactly as good as you would want it to be. Overall, it was an all right horror film, but it was far better than like Halloween Resurrection or Curse of Michael Myers.
But those scores had its moments. I think that the Resurrection, the title, the opening credits theme from Resurrection, that in itself stood out on its own. But anyway,
yeah, it was all right. But the fact that Carpenter, who is kind of a king of synth music, came back, great, excellent. And also he came back for this too. The score is my favorite part of this movie is too.
Yes.
But it was good. Wouldn't say I loved it, but it was good. This one, well, certainly not my favorite. Not the worst either. I've seen some people try to say it's worse than Resurrection. That's not true remotely, but it's not great. It's a little bit too long for its own good. Feels like, well, like you're trying to just stall for a third movie, which is kind of the case. So, yeah, that's basically my opinion. It's
I'm glad we have a diverse range of opinions on this. And Tyler, since you brought it up, I have to talk about the score for this movie because
yes.
this might be my personal favorite Carpenter score. And I might be a little bit biased because
better than The Thing?
Well, that wasn't Carpenter. That was Ennio.
I know that was, he didn't personally make it, but I associate with him as much. But I know
fair enough. But with this one, he's collaborating with his son again, and a guitarist, Daniel Davies, who is in. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the band CKY.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit.
Good stuff.
Yeah, he was a member of that band, and they were awesome. So, like to hear his like electric guitar work combined with Carpenter's synth music is it was metal, man. And then just the cherry on top, the band Ghost had a song in the credits, which just made me so happy.
Yeah, that felt very old school in the same way it felt old school when like the Ramones did a song for Pet Sematary.
Yep. I wish more movies had like the song in the credits or just like a soundtrack like the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, I like that when my movies end with a song that's made for the movie or at the very least fits the tone.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad, Michael, that you brought up Hunter's Moon. I was sitting there and I was listening to this song during the end credits, and when you know that you're listening to something special when you can listen to this song, even though the movie, in this case the movie had just ended, you can see exact moments or literally feel the presence of, in this case, Michael Myers and his journey, and how the Halloween lore is now progressing into something completely different. And in a way, it's Michael's going out and he's hunting underneath a full moon, and the tidbits when you listen to it about being in the cemetery and the various other moments about coming back for you, my friend. Like I instantly thought Michael versus Laurie, and especially the final shot of the movie, them setting up that showdown for Halloween Ends. I loved this song. I was able to find it and I blasted it on repeat on my way home from the screening. And to our listeners everywhere, Do not let this song, listeners, fall under your radar. This is best original song material come awards season. It doesn't. It may need a bit of a push. I know I'm going out on a limb here when I say this, but and it may need a bit of a push, but it needs to be listened to and promoted. This is the type of music that really makes and sells movies as something special.
Hey, if you want to start that campaign, I will gladly join in the fight.
Absolutely.
Shame no horror movies ever actually won since Silence of the Lambs.
Well, now when I think about off the top of my head, there have been some nominations for various categories, but of course, to this day, Silence of the Lambs is the only horror movie in history to win the Oscar for Best Picture.
And not even just winning, the last most major one before that, I would say was probably The Exorcist, probably.
It was nominated, but
but horror films and comedies are the worst performers when it comes to the Oscars, consistently, which is a shame.
It's those extreme genres that are always tough to break through.
And that's what makes this song so special, because it really sells the story. It's like when you go back in music and the Halloween franchise, songs that were played in the film, such as Brother Cain's and Fools Shine On from The Curse of Michael Myers, or Creed's What's This Life For? That song in itself, even though it wasn't originally written for Halloween H2O, when you really listen to that song talking about making it through and settling the score, it really set the tone. It was a perfect marriage. It was a perfect marriage of storytelling through that other medium. And when you can't, besides Billie English's remarkable rendition of No Time to Die, you can't really think off the top of your head, unless I'm missing something, of original music that can really, to
be fair, the year's been a little bit sparse when it comes to possible abilities.
No, it's true. And West Side Story, I don't know if they're going to have original songs or not.
They might have one at most.
Yeah, it's gonna be one, so they can run it for an Oscar. I know how this works when it comes to remaking musicals.
Well, there is Encanto coming out, and Disney for their musicals usually gets at least one nomination.
Plus it's Lin-Manuel Miranda, so yeah.
There you go.
They're gonna keep running that gamble until he wins.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. He's gonna be one of, if not the next, EGOT recipient.
Is anything in the Heights gonna count? Maybe.
There's a song in the credits, but that's about it.
Those usually can actually make it in. I remember, was it 2002 when it was the song from the ending of, what was it?
Chicago?
Gangs in New York. That actually counted.
Phantom of the Opera, Learn to Be Lonely, 2004, sung by Minnie Driver. That was a beautiful ballad. I think No One to Listen was the better song, but either way worked, and it was deserving of a nomination. But yeah, it really makes it so special and true, that perfect cap off. And heck, going back to, I'll bring up James Bond again. Even I was the Living Daylights, License to Kill, GoldenEye, and Tomorrow Never Dies. That four string of films had songs written specifically for those entries. Like, for example, Eric Serra, who scored GoldenEye, he had the Experience of Love at the end credits, and that was something really special. It was a different feel to it, but that score at the end of it was a perfect match.
Weirdly, there's only 2 Oscar winners from the James Bond collection. That's just simply Skyfall and My Name. Was it the one from Sky? The one from
No,
it was
Writings on the Wall.
Writings on the Wall. I couldn't even care to remember it.
Well, to be fair, the thing about that one too is, for whatever reason, See You Again was not nominated. I can't think of the reason. Last time I checked, that song was eligible, wasn't it?
I don't know why it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, because that was the lock, and likely winner on my list to make it. And then when it wasn't, there was just no choice. There was no.
Well, they should have given it to Lady Gaga's song, "Till It Happens to You."
Yeah,
that was a good song too.
Out of all of them, like that was probably the one I would have given it to. I thought that was the most like emotional and
That was
interesting.
weird when it came to songs. I believe there was a song from 50 Shades of Grey nominated.
There was.
Oh, puke. Yeah, like, and that wasn't even the best song. I can't believe I'm defending 50 Shades of Grey here, but that wasn't even the best song to submit to be nominated. It was. I mean, if I was a producer for that movie, I would have submitted "Love Me Like You Do." But anyway,
I'm going to bring up probably my favorite original song that was nominated for a horror film that should have totally won. Ave Satani from The Omen.
Okay, yeah, that's a
very
pretty.
And then they gave it to the Star Is Born remake with Barbara Streisand, and nobody remembers.
Chris Christopherson, yeah, the one that everyone kind of just forgets. Like, oh yeah, The Star Is Born. You mean the Judy Garland film or the Lady Gaga film? No, let's talk about the other one.
Yeah, the one in the middle. Hit the one in the middle. Right, hit the one in the middle.
The one that only my mom loves and nobody else.
Yep, indeed.
Which wasn't a bad song or anything. It just kind of goes in one ear and out the other, and I cannot hum it if you ask me.
Out one ear, out the other ear is literally what I describe City of Stars as.
To an extent. I mean, that soundtrack in itself was incredible.
I will die on the hill that Moana should have won that year. I will die on that hill.
I mean that it was between those two. It was, well, yeah, it was between those two that would have won either way. But I mean, if
I will argue that City of Stars is probably my least favorite song in La La Land.
Yeah, it's not even the best song. I don't know why they went with it so much.
I think it's because it's almost like the theme of Sebastian and I even forgot
his relationship.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, Sebastian and his relationship.
It's been a while since I've seen it, so
maybe those songwriters will get another Oscar for Dear Evan Hansen. No, they're not going to care.
And Scott Mance just rage quit this podcast. Let me so to get back onto Halloween.
We're talking about Halloween.
Yeah, let me there was one getting back onto the central theme of progression and really taking the theme of how one horrific occasion can have such an effect, not merely on the primary and key secondary characters, but on an entire setting as a whole. And so when we look at the citizens of Haddonfield, we witness firsthand how the events of Halloween night in 1978 has affected them in some way, shape, or form. And it's done in a way where we as the audience can feel what they're going through in that manner of understanding. And that's what really takes Halloween Kills. And even though this is a slasher film at its heart, it takes this matter of understanding and really evolves the story into that of more of a dramatic horror film. And in this way of like, not in a way of like, because when we're in the bar, do we go into spoilers, or is it spoiler free?
By the time this episode is released, most people have seen it, and also if you've seen the box office, then yeah, people have seen this one.
All right, so let's I'll do my best to, just for those who haven't seen it. There's a moment in the bar at a bar in the early stages of its rising action, and we see these characters and they tell their stories, but it's not the way that it's presented. It's not dumbed down for the sake of horror cliche. And that's one of the things that really brings that element of realism back into the heart of the Halloween story. And when you feel that element, and it ultimately builds up to what ultimately leads up to the citizens and that traumatic stress, if you will, ultimately coming to a head. it really takes that Haddonfield, like you were saying, Mike, and makes it a character all its own. It's the effects of pure evil and the origins which caused it to kill, and over time, like, it's finally, like, it just builds up in that snowball effect, as the best way I could describe it, to where they say enough is enough.
There is kind of an irony though when like the mob chants "evil dies tonight," when it's actually kind of the opposite, that like this mob pretty much formed by like fear and trauma and you know, all of that like unreleased tension. It's kind of creating a new monster from the aftermath of Michael's first killing spree.
Yes.
Although I will say, boy, they sure repeat that phrase a lot throughout the movie.
What, killing spree?
No, evil dies tonight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant when I said the dialogue can get like clunky.
I'm pretty sure that's like every third line from Tommy.
Right.
What do you think, Tommy?
Tom,
evil dies tonight.
Speaking of Tommy, what do you guys think of Anthony Michael Hall's performance?
I think that I think from what was presented to us, I think it worked. I mean, I know that getting Paul Rudd would have been way too expensive, but
he would never say yes to that again.
I think with the screenplay, like, because that's the thing, because he's so big now. It would have been impossible. His agent would have insisted that he get star billing. It would have just been too much. And
also I think that Paul Rudd is too likable to play this version of Tommy.
I agree.
Also, we don't need any tiebacks to Curse of Michael Myers. We really don't.
Well, to an extent, I mean, I enjoyed Paul Rudd's. That was his first starring role. You know, carrying the tradition of
Stephen Rudd is what they credit him as.
That's right. You know, and continuing that tradition of unknowns in key protagonistic roles in the Halloween franchise. That was something for what we saw, and that really showcased his ability. Looking back on it, is something that one can go back to and study on how his performance in that one can showcase his overall abilities as an actor. I mean, because by the time we got to, because I can't think off the top of my head before we got to Ant-Man anything besides straight up comedy, and there were some dramatic moments in various roles, but that was but he was this close to being typecast. Am I right or am I wrong in saying that?
As far as I know, I'm kind of hard pressed to think of like any serious dramatic roles between that and Ant-Man.
Yeah,
I had to look up his filmography, but I think that's about right. Although we're gonna bring back anyone from the old trilogy, why not just bring back Danielle Harris again?
That's one of the things, you know, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that's one of the things that I absolutely despised about Halloween 2018, was because it was the perfect opportunity to do that love letter. And I mean, not saying there's anything wrong with Judy Greer, but when you have an opportunity to really bring that family connection and to really have two, I mean, from when in terms of scream royalty, a queen and a princess on the same thing, and literally mother and daughter. I don't know if it was because of mainstream recognition or what the reason was, but
you're gonna hate this because she did ask to be in it, but they said no.
Exactly. I know, and
Ouch.
and when I found out about it, that's one of the things. Like, it was a perfect opportunity for celebration. That's why I felt it was such a mess. If I got out my scroll of reasons why I thought Halloween 2018 was such a mess, we'd be here till next Tuesday. But we're talking about a much better film in Halloween Kills. And
maybe they're saving it for Halloween Ends.
Yes, the ending. Yes, until the next one.
Dun dun dun. No, but
Can't wait to her 90-year-old Laurie Strode fighting 90-year-old Michael.
Oh yeah, with their walkers hitting one another at the Haddonfield at the Haddonfield or Smiths Grove Senior Citizens Home. But
Yeah,
I
this is
will,
like freaking like the Batman quote with the Joker. We're destined to do this forever.
I will say though, Judy Greer's character was a much needed improvement based on how her character as a whole was written. And the one spoiler that I will say in regards to character development is when it came to the build up to that, ultimately that final showdown, it was Judy Greer and Allison who fought off against Michael, and spoiler alert, Laurie and Michael are not face to face or in the same frame at all in this movie, which was a gamble that really paid off. And I didn't realize, and it wasn't something that was realized that I realized until a couple hours after I left the screening. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Huh. Because I was thinking about how much I like this movie in comparison to not only other entries in the franchise, but other slasher films as a whole, and where it will stand alongside the test of time.
Bringing up Judy Greer,
Yes.
I've been telling this to like everyone, but it's so surreal to me how the Halloween franchise has given Judy Greer so much more material than like anything she's been in over the last, I want to say like 5 to 10 years, because
Yeah.
she always seems to be typecast as like the mom or the wife, or in Ant-Man's case, like the co-parent.
Yes.
But
Basically, just this and Archer. That was all she's had.
She was in the Carrie remake as the gym teacher, which is still kind of
the Betty Buckley character.
But
that and the numerous cell phone commercials that I can name.
She was no Betty Buckley.
Yeah, unlimited iPhone.
And to be fair, she's also playing a mother here, but at least she has a little bit more urgency, especially in this movie, when she actually gets to, square off against the Shape.
Yes. And that's what really, like, her version in Halloween 2018, like, that was horror cliche. Here it's that strong woman hero where a secondary protagonist comes in and grabs that brass ring and runs with it. And
the protagonist.
What was that?
The term is protagonist, the second most important character.
Yeah, and I can't applaud. And like I said, I continue to applaud the sense of direction that the writers opted to go with this. And I say it again, it was so refreshing to see that.
Before we get too far away from it, we need to talk about the flashback scenes.
Yes.
Yes. Specific. Well, I have two specific notes about this. One, how awesome it is to see Thomas Mann playing the younger deputy Frank Hawkins.
Yes.
And it's amazing, like how much he looks like a younger Will Patton. And the second thing is how continually I will be impressed by their use of Dr. Loomis, who, by the way, that's not CGI. Like that's not like like
like Rogue One, Carrie Fisher type of thing.
Yeah, no. This was like full hair and makeup, and the actors who portrayed him are Tom Jones Jr., the art director, and then providing the voice for Loomis was Colin, Mayan.
Yes.
And I'll be honest. For like, the first time we see him, I thought that was Loomis.
I thought
like the transformation was just uncanny.
exactly. And
you're gonna hate me for this.
oh boy, no. Let me say first, when we finally get that sense of closure to really separate this story from the original timeline counterpart as they intended, and we were able to see how Michael was caught, and I mean, thankfully they didn't over. Let me say, I have a sense of feeling, even though it wasn't designed this way, that the Loomis character was in a way protected and not overexposed, because that if the Loomis character was used more than he was, I think that had the potential to really hurt the story or become too much of a distraction. So props to him for keeping it like on the down low in that respect.
I can see what you mean by that. Tyler, you had something to say.
Yeah, I don't even agree. Thomas Mann, I'll agree, because he's pretty good. Liked him since I saw him in Me and Earl and the Dying Girl back like 2015. But this stuff with Dr. Loomis, that did not work for me remotely. The moment I saw him, I'm like, that's distracting. Gee.
Was it the voice that threw you off?
It's the way he looked and the voice. They've always kind of been a little bit awkward how they've handled him every time since he died in '96. But this is the worst one. Like I thought he was there. He did a voiceover. I think it was in H2O. That was all right. But
I'm just gonna say one thing is that if given the choice between like deep faking the face and makeup, I'm going to go with makeup like 90% of the time.
Same.
And I think there is something to say that they did go in that direction, which I think is kind of a relief now in when a lot of movies are doing the CGI thing, including an upcoming reboot.
Yeah, I've heard about that, and
Which one?
You know which one.
Oh, right. Yep. I do want to say this though. Getting back on the thing with the difference between like cliche horror and this dramatic horror.
Last thing I'll say is they should have just recast the role. They were going to do anything with Dr. Loomis in a flashback.
Oh no, like this worked, and even though the length of the I'll call the pre-title sequence, even though the length almost, even though it almost overstayed its welcome, I think, and that might be, in a sense of nitpicking, that might be the worst part of the movie. I think that if this was cliche horror, like the moment I think it was it Lonnie, correct me if I'm wrong, that when he turned around and said the boogeyman, like
I think that was Lonnie.
Yeah, the kid actor who played Lonnie, when he said that, if this was a cliched Halloween film, we would have gone right into the opening credits after that moment, but we didn't, and we helped progress this story into the pre-title sequence. I do want to say something. This pre-title sequence, the opening theme, getting back onto that for a moment, that not only the choice of multiple pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, especially one that was on fire, really set the tone for what was to come. That choice in vocal additions was like, that really added that dramatic, it really showcased that drama element, if you will.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I think
it was a decent opening. It wasn't no Halloween 4 opening. That's the best for the franchise, but it was decent.
Really, you think that was the best for the franchise?
Yeah, the one where just static shots of like Halloween decorations in fall, where just like silently for a few minutes. It's absolutely perfect atmosphere.
Well, you can't beat the originals. That really set the tone for what was to come with the franchise. But staying on makeup, I do want to give a special shout out to the makeup effects department. Their work in this film was completely masterful, not only due to the realism of these effects. I mean, like when you see the like when it comes to dead bodies, the amount of blood and the realism. But in this one particular moment, and I won't go into too many details to avoid spoilers, but that scene, and I'm going to see if you guys can see what I'm talking about when I say this, but that scene in the park, and this one death involving the nurse, the male nurse.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
That when the way that effect looked, I mean, even though one knows better, this particular instance looked so masterfully done that I was just like, I had to ask myself, how did they do that? Like, and that's when you know you're really looking at something wonderful. And I can't applaud that team enough for going in that direction, because when I think back on distracting moments of makeup, like I'll use the final fight scene in Creed, for example. That swollen eye was so distracting, and you could just tell that was really bad makeup. But here, that one moment, and you ask yourself, how did they do that? It just really stood out. It really stood out to me, and that should not go unnoticed by anybody studying filmmaking, specifically the makeup department. And I think that moment specifically will be studied for a long time.
Oh yeah. And just as a reminder to those who maybe forgot that this is a Blumhouse production, so
Yes.
The budget did not go any higher than 20 million. So that
It's still
must
higher than some of the other Halloween movies, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I have no doubt, but it just shows like how much attention to detail they put into like some of the practical effects in this.
Yes.
Actually, without even checking, I'm going to assume the most expensive one prior to all these movies probably Resurrection, just because they managed to get such high class talent like Tyra Banks and Busta Rhymes.
Oh God.
What was I think Rob Zombie's not looking it up. Hang on.
Rob Zombie had I'm not complaining about them getting Weird Al Yankovic, but they did get Weird Al Yankovic to do a little cameo,
which was bizarre.
So I looked it up really quick, and so far Hollywood Kills is the most expensive, because both Resurrections and Rob Zombie's 2 are both 15 million.
Oh wow, okay. Well, there you go.
Makes much sense. Yep.
Can I also bring up a performance that I thought was really good, actually?
By all means.
I thought Kyle Richards did a really good job in this one.
Yes.
And I was like, a part of me was pleasantly like surprised by that, because she's known as being one of the housewives now of Beverly Hills, and I was wondering, does she still have the chops? And I thought she like really delivered on and gave a really solid performance. And incidentally, she broke her nose while filming one of those
yes.
scenes.
Really?
And incidentally, I actually like right before COVID, I briefly saw her at my temple on the High Holy Days. She was very lovely.
Oh, very
that's,
nice.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's nice.
That is very cool.
And I was able to talk with her about Halloween. She had like just wrapped this one. I
Oh,
believe.
cool.
Totally not jealous.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That is fantastic. I am jealous. Took the words right out of my mouth.
Another performance I think we should mention. Actually, there's a couple. Jim Cummings, who I don't really think I remember the last time I saw him acting before. I know he's been in a couple different movies, but this is the first time I've seen him in a while, playing Hawkins's partner. And then probably some of the scene stealers, at least in my opinion, Scott MacArthur and Michael McDonald as Big John and Little John.
Yes.
I saw Michael McDonald's name in the credits and I was like, okay, this is another actor that happens to be named Michael McDonald, right? And then it was actually Matt TV's Michael McDonald, and I kind of lost my shit.
Yep. And there was a backstory to those characters. I can't think of the exact moment, but there was their faces were on a bench, or on a bench at I can't at some point in the movie that I caught, but I couldn't read what it was, if they were lawyers. I can't think of what it was, but that was a little tidbit that I just was able to catch. So there is a bit of a backstory to those characters. It's just it just wasn't on display. A little homage, I guess, if you will.
That's kind of cool. What else is cool is that I did notice a couple season of the Witch Easter eggs.
Oh yes, and especially with the masks.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty blatant, but
and
it works.
And
it was
again,
in the trailer too, in fairness.
Well, even then, you got that idea that it would still be nostalgic, and even though this film is still nostalgic and a celebration, and the big difference between this film and Halloween 2018 is that it's, while still a love letter, this is still something that helps progress the Halloween story, and it doesn't feel like it was hammered down the throat of the viewer. And I had a smile on my face thinking when Michael was in the park with the skull mask, and with the skull mask and the knife, I was just thinking to myself, yep, Michael finally got his revenge.
I don't know. I thought it was a little bit almost too nostalgic for two specific films, because no one's mentioned this yet, but the entire general plot structure kind of reminiscent of Halloween 2, with Laurie being in the hospital most of the movie, and Halloween 4 also had a vigilante plot.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Most of the people who are on the opposite side of Tommy, who like despise this movie, their biggest criticism is that the franchise has nowhere else to go. They're just rehashing like old plots from like the sequels in the junkyard. And while I understand like on a surface level where they're coming from, I think this movie, it uses those plots to what's the word, to chart its own path.
Yeah, to progress and bring it down a path of progression for story's sake. I can't think of the exact word though, but yeah.
Personally, in a perfect world, I wish Halloween 3 had been a big hit so they could just keep doing that every movie.
Yeah, because Halloween 4 was, we know that the idea for Halloween 4 was going to be a ghost story, something in the vein of a ghost story. And then of course we had to wait 20 years. We had to wait another 20 years for Paranormal Activity. But
Yeah, it's like, no matter what you think of Halloween 3, it is not uncreative and it is not dull.
it's different. And that the Cherry to Pumpkins theme, that's iconic in its own right.
Something else I wanted to ask. After Halloween ends, where exactly does the story go?
They reboot it again.
No, I think. Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
Because one thing I was kind of jokingly speculating about with some of my friends is that, you know, they talked about Halloween ends like having a bit of a time skip.
Yeah.
But something I was kind of joking about is that, you know, depending on like how much like the story escalates, you know, with Michael killing however many people, like in this movie alone, he takes out almost the entire town.
That's right.
Out 30 people, which I think is a record.
Like I was kind of joking about like, you know, how much farther things can go. Like in the next movie, you've got Michael attracting the attention of like the army. And
we're gonna go Friday the 13th Part 9 where the FBI is going to assassinate him in a freaking ambush.
Yeah, basically, I imagine Blumhouse turning Halloween into like the Jason franchise.
No,
no, I really kind of hope they don't, because Friday the 13th is it needs to be its own thing.
Yeah, I know. I don't think I want that to happen. I'm just kind of I just kind of went down a rabbit hole of like, what if, I don't know, they take Michael to space in Halloween Forever.
No, Halloween franchise can be schlocky, but never that schlocky.
No, like I think because that was the idea. Because when Jamie Lee Curtis, she gave an interview. This was, I want to say, around 2012-ish. It was only posted. Somebody posted it on YouTube. I want to say maybe 3 weeks ago, and she talked about the idea behind Halloween H2O, and she even said the biggest mistake of her career was not lobbying for executive producer credit for that film. But she said that the idea was to bring it all together and end it. And I think that's where Halloween Ends is going to come into play.
And I kind of hope.
I know my horror franchise, the ones that have the word "end" in it. Oh, they ain't gonna end. I know your Freddy's Dead and your Final Fridays and your final chapters. I know how this works.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
I just hope they kind of mean it this time, because if they don't, then you know, the sharks are just sitting there in the pool waiting to be jumped.
And they've done it already many times.
That is true.
But I don't know. But I mean, I just don't see a studio like Blumhouse going down the cash grab route. And it's the vein of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that really sets a studio and their body of work apart from another. And I just don't see a story like this unless you went back to the original story arc. Unless you went back to the original storyline of the blood relative, or
I hope not.
Well, I mean, it could work.
Cough.
I mean,
Halloween 3 reboot. Cough.
Exactly.
Excuse me.
Halloween 3 Part 2: The Revenge of Kotal Cochran. Yes, please.
Remake Season of the Witch and just call it that, the Season of the Witch.
I'm okay with that.
No, we're gonna mix it up with like that movie from like 10 years ago with it's called Season of the Witch with Nicolas Cage.
Nobody remembers that movie anyway.
Not even.
Oh, then they shouldn't. But
you know, the thing about Halloween Kills is that when you take the legend that is the Shape and you really showcase, you really take the lore and make it into that groundbreaking story, even though even though we've had various hints throughout the Halloween franchise, such as that the citizens being interviewed on that radio show in Curse of Michael Myers, and then the town, and then Bob's father and his buddies being the closest thing that we got to the civilians taking a stand before this one. Ultimately, we get to the heart and soul of this story is the effect of what the boogeyman can do. And when I originally saw John Carpenter's Halloween, I was in middle school, and my sister was coming in and out of the room at that point, and when she saw the ending, and she was spooked, and then she realized the reason why. She was only in 6th grade at the time, but she said that the reason why the filmmakers chose to end the film in that way, not only for scaring purposes, but it's because the boogeyman never dies. And that's what led to the snowball effect and this level of madness, if you will, and how the legend of the boogeyman can haunt us all and in the town of Haddonfield. It lives on in a shape of pure evil, and the effects caused by this evil and the origins which caused it to kill on that Halloween night so long ago.
I just realized this franchise is actually tied with Friday the 13th for the most amount of sequels for a horror franchise.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's 12 Friday the 13th, and there's 12 now for Halloween.
So Nightmare's in last place.
Yeah, well, the number one horror franchise with the most amount of sequels is the obscure and mostly forgotten Witchcraft series with 19 sequels.
Oh.
Although most of those are direct to video.
Yeah, weren't those all like straight to VHS and DVD?
After like the third one, yeah. Also, I think it's about 11 Hellraiser movies currently.
Do you know what I hope for in Halloween Ends?
What?
What's that?
Bring back Ben Tramer.
I was about to mention that
Yes.
because I just realized I'm pretty sure the first example of vigilante justice you could say in the franchise was when that cop randomly ran over Ben Tramer in the second movie.
Justice for Ben Tramer. He didn't.
He's
deserve
actually
that.
he's actually the sole survivor now of that entire group.
Yes. Bring back Ben Tramer.
Yeah, he was the first to die in the original group. In the second
They
movie.
did
Now he's
mention
the
him
only
in this one though, which made me happy.
Yeah, they mentioned him.
Well, yeah, but that was as a tidbit, but I just
They did mention him though. That's
Yeah, he's
more than I can
alive. He's
say.
around.
Oh,
Is the actor still alive?
I don't know. Probably wasn't that old.
But anyway, my final thoughts. My final thoughts now, I think I've probably changed from when I initially wrote my Letterboxd review. I think now I'm inspired to kind of go back, watch it again with with a fresh pair of eyes, and hopefully there's a screening in Dolby sometime this week.
Yes.
That might be a little bit hard because Dune and Eternals are coming up, but
Better make it quick.
yeah. But man, this is definitely one of those movies that it grows on you the more you think about it. And as much as I personally loved Halloween 2018, I think there's more to this movie than what's on the surface.
Absolutely.
Tyler, I know you were less enthused, but did anything in our conversation sort of pique your interest?
Well, not to mention the idea of Laurie Strode going to space, Michael Myers did give me a flashback to one of my all-time favorite comedy gags from a British show, which was, the gag from Brass Eye of sending a child molester and a child by accident into space. And I'm just imagining that where it's just Laurie Strode, Michael Myers. It's, we got to send Michael Myers to space. We can't touch anyone kill anyone. Oh no, we let a woman on board. Oh God, this is the one thing we didn't want to happen. And that's the rest of the movie.
I mean, Jason X is my favorite Friday the 13th film, and I will stand by this.
Which I can respect because of just how incredibly schlocky it is. It does not care.
We love premarital sex. That scene cracks me up.
David Cronenberg getting horribly murdered in the beginning of your movie. Why not?
It's a guilty pleasure, but the only Friday the 13th film worth watching will always be Jason Goes to Hell. But that's for another conversation.
What? No, it's gonna be 4 and 6 if we're gonna actually talk legitimately good movies.
Oh boy.
Hey, you will not say no to that ending song by Alice Cooper.
Oh, that's a good song. That and Darkest Side of the Night from Jason Takes Manhattan are really.
Jason Takes a Boat and I Guess Manhattan.
Yeah, but that very two more specifically Darkest Side of the Night, very underrated motion picture song. But my final thoughts are this, and Mike, I'm really glad that you brought up the Dolby Cinema, because that was how I experienced Halloween Kills. And I'm not saying this to try to convince anybody to go back to the movies if they're not ready to do so. But it makes me wonder if, had I watched the film at home versus the theater, if my enjoyment of the film would have been any less than it was.
Always a fair question.
Absolutely, and it really makes me wonder. And there's some things in this film, specifically with the subject matter, that people may find as a turnoff, and it could come across as a distraction, specifically in today's climate. But at the end of it, I mean, I had to remind myself that this film was originally supposed to be released in October of 2020. And I constantly remind myself, even though that, but if you really look at this as a work of fiction, I mean, it's not a film for everybody. And we go to the movies to distract ourselves from events that are going on with the outside world. And some people would be able to handle that, some not so much. But it's a real interesting story. Let me back that up a bit. It's some reminders one may find tolerable, while others might not be able to, and that's okay. It's like, I had this thought of, if it not necessarily with COVID, but due to the subject matter, was the subject matter the reason why it streamed on, it was simulcastly released through Peacock in addition to theaters? And
that's good. That's a good question. I know a lot of people speculate that the reason they made that decision is because reviews from the Toronto Film Festival were not great.
Right.
But studios are, they come up with these decisions like way farther in advance.
Absolutely.
We only find out about them, when the press like reports on it.
And those are all valid concerns to have too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the executives having that thought, or anybody not being able to handle that particular subject matter at this time. It's respectable. They're all respectable and valid concerns. And at the end of the day, positive thoughts should always be the number one priority for the sake of any individual.
Agreed. And before we move on to the second film,
positive thoughts is not what I would not describe the next movie as.
Before we move on to the next film, I do want to just point out that Halloween Ends will bring up COVID-19 as like part of the plot. So that has me intrigued, but also really nervous how they execute it.
Well, he can confirm Michael Myers at least believes in masks.
True.
Yeah, that was that moment when he picked up the mask, put it on, like took one quick glance at everybody at that particular moment, and then he figured, well, if I'm going down, I might as well be going down swinging. That was a cool moment. But anyway, random thought. But anyway, sorry, Mike, continue.
Anyway, we now move on to The Last Duel, Ridley Scott's latest and the first of 2 films he's got coming this fall. Next month, we'll be talking about House of Gucci. But for now, this one is a historical drama directed and produced by Ridley Scott, based on the 2004 novel of the same name by Eric Jager, from a screenplay written by Nicole Halsener, Ben Affleck,
Helsener.
Helsener, Ben Affleck, and Matt Damon. Matt Damon stars as Jean de Carew, a respected knight known for his bravery and skill on the battlefield. And Adam Driver plays Jacques Legris, a squire whose intelligence and eloquence makes him one of the most admired nobles in court. When Legris viciously assaults Carew's wife, she steps forward to accuse her attacker, an act of bravery and defiance that puts her life in jeopardy. The ensuing trial by combat, a grueling duel to the death, places the fate of all 3 in God's hands. Tyler, I'm gonna start with you because you're the history buff out of the group. So
yeah, I'm not a medievalist or anything, but I actually own a copy of the book The Last Duel by Eric Jager. He's not a technical historian; he's really a professor of literature. But I'm not going to really say that doesn't count. I mean, the best ever book about piracy was also by a literary professor. They tend to do really good on their research and primary sources. Fantastic book. I got to recommend it. I'm kind of surprised it took this long to get adapted. Yeah, I love this movie a lot. It's probably the most fun I've had with Ridley Scott since, oh Lord, I'm gonna have to.
The Martian?
No, I might even go back all the way to like the Kingdom of Heaven director's cut.
Oh, yeah, I still have to see that.
Yeah, you gotta see that director's cut, not the original one. That I'm pretty sure you've even just found that one. But this film, if you want to talk about, it's one of my favorite words in the English language or phrases, which is nuance and ambiguity. Oh, this movie does not give you straight answers until the literal last minute, and I love that.
Yeah, I gotta say, I only have like a little bit of an issue with how this movie starts. I think personally, maybe it has something to do with the editing, but it feels like this movie was supposed to be like minimum for like 3 hours long, but because we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and because, well, the subject matter is sensitive to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to like trim this down to get as many screenings per day as possible. At least that's what I feel.
That wasn't my impression of it. I feel like it was more setting up the conclusion before flashing backwards Rashomon style to how did we get here? Here's the still chapters. It's very Rashomon style, actually.
Oh yeah, that part I loved. I love the way this film like gives plenty of time to tell Jacques' story, Jean de Carew, and Lady Marguerite. The only other major criticism I have is, well, the scene itself, which I understand. I understand we probably should put a huge trigger warning, for those who are victims of sexual assault. I can understand if anything of this movie makes people uncomfortable, because both times I watched that scene, yeah, that was exactly my my reaction.
Yeah.
And funny story, I was like the youngest I was like the youngest person in my screening. Everyone else was like, like vaguely middle-aged.
Probably people that saw Gladiator back in the day.
Probably.
I'm surprised you haven't got any people in the theater. I got nobody.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that too. Hayden, your thoughts on The Last Duel?
I don't have much that's different to say from you, Mike, actually. I really enjoyed it. I also wasn't entirely, actually, it wasn't really the opening scene for me. It was more so like leading into like right after the opening scene that I kind of was not the most engaged, but then like I snapped out of that and got really into it. But I did really enjoy it, with the exception of that one scene that I think maybe could have been edited a little better, and I think that would have improved the final product ultimately. But I still really enjoyed it. Or enjoyed might be the wrong word, but
yeah.
This is not a movie I say is enjoyable.
If you want to use a different, if you wanted to use a different E word, I would use engaging.
Yeah, engaging. Yes, I agree.
Tommy, you literally just got back from seeing this movie. What are your fresh thoughts?
I did, and I will piggyback off of what you all are saying, that this is a tough, as with Halloween Kills to an extent, though a completely different movie. This is a very tough film to review in terms of its subject matter. One can easily target it as three of you just have, and it's a touchy subject to really discuss, and the downside to that sensitive subject as a film, pushing that subject aside from a film perspective as a whole, it breaks no new ground for Ridley Scott. It has,
well, yeah, because he made a movie back in the day called The Duelist.
Well, not only that, but like as a period piece, like when you have your Gladiators, your Kingdom of Heavens, and even films like such as American Gangster, Exodus, Gods and Kings. It just really, there really is nothing left to prove with this period set, with this period setup or milieu, I guess is I don't know if that's a good word to use, but
I hear what you're saying. Like, it's like this movie being well made is not a surprise. It's just like, it's like you go to a restaurant and you order like your favorite meal. You're not surprised that it tastes good because you've had it like 7,000 times.
mm-hmm.
I would actually disagree that it's at all like Gladiator. Gladiator is incredibly conventional. The hero and bad things happen to the family, and then he gets his revenge. That's incredibly conventional because he's the flawless hero. Everything's great. Kingdom of Heaven's a little bit more complicated because of how it handles the Crusades, but Alien's clearly the good guy. This is the main hero. Nobody is remotely likable in this movie, save for one character. And even the ending is not exactly played off as like it's some sort of glorious win. It's more of a, yeah, that happens. Life goes on. Pretty miserable still.
And that's the thing. Like, this is nowhere near on the same caliber as Gladiator, and it's really disappointing because the screenplay. Now, I do want to give a disclaimer before I go any further. I know of the book. I didn't get a chance to read it before watching this film.
I believe Eric Yeager was actually involved with the creation of the movie, and he's even said it's about 75% of the book, which feels about right.
But even then, with the work of Damon and Affleck, with their contributions, not only as actors, but from the screenplay as well. You know, they're Academy Award winning writers, and it just really, for those pyrotechnics, this just felt like a missed opportunity. The film itself, though broken down, it went on way too long. When we see Damon's character's point of view, it came like especially in the beginning of that story, like we're in one spot and then we jump to like X amount of time passes and then we're in another location. Then all of a sudden he's getting married. And then we realize that after I wasn't looking at the time because I was more focused on the film itself and trying to figure it out. But when you get to chapter 2 and you realize that this is the story that it's trying to tell, you think to yourself, oh no, we got, like, you think, even though I wasn't rolling my eyes, because it has to be, if you tell this type of story from a memory perspective leading up to the moment the film is named after, it just goes on way too long. It goes on way too long. And the first thing I thought of from that perspective was an action film from 2018 called Vantage Point, and how it was the same story told from X number of different perspectives. And by the time we get to it was the sixth story when you realize, okay, this is ultimately the falling action leading to that final moment of payoff. Here, it just dragged. It just felt too much of a drag.
Oh, you mean the 2008 movie where it's like a president gets shot and it's like 20 people's perspectives?
Oh yeah, but even then with the different perspectives, like with this one with the last duel, like it just dragged on and on.
Do you think the problem is there isn't quite enough difference between the different, like the three different chapters? Like one example is you see a scene where Jean and Jacques, like they come together and they attempt to give like the olive branch.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
This is like the scene where Legree meets Lady Marguerite for the first time.
Oh yeah, where they shake their hands saying I'll use the George Harrison song, "Give me love, give me peace on earth," like no hard feelings, like we're here for that spot. Okay, that's what I thought you were getting at. Yeah, like that moment, you play it once, okay, but then play it three times, it gets redundant. And like it's at that point where you ask yourself, you think of the strategy Milos Forman gave when he made Amadeus. When he released the R-rated cut in the early 2000s, the final runtime was 3 hours and 20 minutes long. And when he edited down Amadeus, when it was originally released, he had the thought of making it for the MTV generation and the theme behind Mozart's character. With the length of this movie and all that unnecessary melodrama, even though this is technically a memory story, why not? You can still tell it from different perspectives, but why not why not try to narrow it down from 153 to like say 118 or 120 minutes? Because make it that memory, especially when we get to that, irks me to say it, that moment we see it once, but then we see it twice from
the two different perspectives. Yeah.
And I just sit there and I'm asking myself, even though it's a different perspective, why not like a flashback with different edits to tell it? Because is it something that the viewer really, even though it's designed to make the viewer comfortable, do we really need to? We get it. It's really hard to. I feel uncomfortable talking about it, but when you like from that perspective of like, we get it, it's uncomfortable, the point's been across, do we really need to experience that again?
Well, it's because they keep putting the victim through this time and time again, so they got to make the audience do it too.
But we get that though. Why not showcase, like I said, like show her talking about it, and then like cut to an alternate cut of the action, then like cut right back to it.
So
the lack of change. Sorry.
What I want to just say is, in regards to my issue, because I don't disagree, what I would have done, and I think it would have actually improved how I felt about it a little, it would have given it that extra boost in terms of my opinion on it. I think they should have, if they were going to show the entire incident, I would have heavily shortened Legree's perspective of it and saved it for the end.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
Because I think when they showed it from his perspective so literally, I don't think it kind of works against his arc in a way.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I think it's a little more powerful, like if you don't like see, because it kind of just raises the question of, well, he knows that he did it like very aggressively and that it was, but he's defending himself in court saying he didn't. And I think that kind of just doesn't really work with what I think would have been better. And I think saving it for the end would have made it more powerful. And doing it twice, like near the end, I think in the second two perspectives, I think limited its impact the second time they showed it.
That leads into the ambiguity again, though, from the book, where the thing is, the book doesn't actually give a straight up answer what actually happened, because the historian can't just say definitively, well, this is what happened. He's like, well, I think it was this. The movie's a lot more definitive actually in its answering of what exactly happened, which I just would have like made, like when he was doing it, I would have maybe like cut away. Maybe you hear some noises or something, but like you just like maybe just like see like another room in the building, and or something.
Yeah, like alternate shots, or like showcasing from a filming standpoint, focus on his perspective rather than Margaret's, or being like that fly on the wall. Because the moment Legree closed the door to the bedroom, when he closed the door, like it was the exact same thing twice, and you got that, and you got that idea, and it felt the impact was lost, even though
another thing I will say is I think I did notice some subtle differences, I think, like between the two from what I noticed.
There were a couple. I know that because of the book, again, because the book even points out that a lot of the court testimony, which a lot of it still survives to this day, is very minor and subtle changes, which I think kind of more reinforces when people are telling these stories in court. They're not always lying. They genuinely believe what they said, and there are just minor but made important differences when you pull it. It's not dramatic, but it matters.
And the main thing that really bothered me that I don't know if it was the screenplay or the delivery that the actors were portraying, but there was too much melodrama. Am I the only one that feels like the melodramatic undertones of this delivery was on a distracting display or deterring from what the story was trying to tell?
Well, not for me, the book is very much melodramatic because the transcripts were horribly melodramatic for its era too.
Yeah, I don't think I was too distracted by the melodrama. If anything, that kind of it kind of heightens it does sort of like heighten the reality of the situation. And speaking of heightened reality, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Ben Affleck stealing every scene he's in.
Oh yeah,
as Count Pierre d'Alençon.
Yeah, the pure sleazy lord in charge of all this. And he is so good.
I didn't expect to see a performance like this from him. I don't normally like say, oh, Ben Affleck is my favorite part of a movie. Like, I always think he's perfectly fine, depending. We're not talking about Gigli. But he did a really good job in this. And I was like, I didn't know you had this in you, Ben.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets Oscar nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Oh, no.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Fun fact about this role, Affleck was supposed to play Legree, but due to scheduling and in some way a deliberate attempt to go against type, he didn't want the audience to be distracted by the Matt Damon Ben Affleck dynamic.
Yeah, because they are really best friends in real life. That would have been probably too much.
Yeah, so that's why he gave himself the smaller role.
We're better off.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I think that was definitely for the best.
Plus, I think Adam Driver just kind of sells the sleaziness of Legree more.
Mm-hmm. Again, but I do love how the movie, because we do have to mention that the year this movie came out and was made is very important, because if it came out in the mid 2000s or late 2000s, like after Kingdom of Heaven, I can see a version of the story where it's just simply the brave knight saves the day. That can totally be an interpretation, but I'm really glad they went with the more ambiguous. Both these people really, really suck. One's an egotistical megalomaniac, and the other one is just a sleazy prick.
It makes one wonder, when you put it from that perspective, how this would have been if this was Damon's follow-up to Good Will Hunting.
Ooh.
That would have not been a good choice.
Exactly. When you look at it now, but from that perspective, especially with the Damon Affleck team, like if that was, while it showcases diversity, but then again, I had something and I just lost it. With the length, going back to the length, with this melodrama, even though, this, like, the subject matter had the potential. There were times where it could have been, it could have been dumbed down if the filmmakers wanted to do so, but they didn't from that perspective. When it came to, I don't want to call it a triangle because it was the furthest thing from it, but the depiction of the women characters, such as, without going into spoilers, the moment where they casually discuss Legree, like about how handsome he is, X, Y, and Z. The melodrama, like when you look at it, I mean, this could have been this could have been this could have been like a 5-part miniseries on Lifetime if it wanted to be, but it wasn't. I mean, and then again, from that perspective, one can think of a couple different Lifetime movies to recommend before getting to this one.
Do many Lifetime movies end with a fight to the death at the end? Because they'd be a lot more fun.
Well, there are a few. Again, completely different films, but there is a final. There is one that I can instantly think of off the top of my head that ends up with a final showdown. No, it's nowhere near as long as this one, but anyway, it just really it's the pacing. The pacing really hurts the story. I had a similar problem with what was that film that Damon did? I can see it. Shoot, I'm gonna look it up. It was the World Cup movie with Morgan Freeman.
Hold on, I've got that one.
For a moment there, my mind went to United Passions. What? No, not that.
No. It was. I'm looking it up. I'm on my IMDb. But when we ultimately get to that Invictus, there we go.
There we go.
When we ultimately get to that heavily promoted moment saying where he goes, "Listen to your country." Like by the time I thought of that when we got to the final duel where he says that powerful, impassioned line, "Confess," and
which, by the way, if anyone thinks that is ripping off Game of Thrones with the mountain and the viper, it's probably the other way around actually, because, and this is something I really need to mention, the actual titular last duel is probably one of the most well-documented events of the Middle Ages, because there's like 15 primary sources from noblemen, peasant people, everybody in France was pretty much at this event, and they all wrote down what they saw, and most of it matches up to the point where you can kind of actually almost do a blow by blow. Like, we know that Legree threw his sword at this angle of the sword shield. It's all these details that we actually know that is so easy to cinematically make, is why I'm surprised that it was never made until now, because there's no other event I can think of that's a combat duel that was so well documented.
Exactly. And getting from a filmmaking standpoint, I like that final duel. Like it could have been promoted like the focus, even though it's the title, The Last Duel. Like that promotion of, like an ultimate showdown. It's Jason Bourne versus Kylo Ren. Like it really, like the way that it's edited, like there's a moment, and I don't know if you guys remember this moment or not, but there were key moments where it was like back and forth camera shots, and then like there was one moment of blurriness to where it felt as if cinematography, Dariusz Wolski, I'm probably butchering his first name and I apologize if I am, but
hey, you got close.
Yeah, it was like it was done to where I said to myself, I said he's trying to hide stunt doubles, and it became really obvious. It's really surprising too, because when you look at Wolski's resume and everything that he's done in comparison to this, it felt so, I don't want to use I don't want to say amateurish, but like a step down. It felt like a step down from some of his previous work. It just didn't match. It just didn't match with the theme. And even though this was a duel, the intensity of it, I mean, while you're invested just by looking at the battle, it just wasn't as impactful. Like, we go straight to it with the moment the duel begins, where they run towards each other on the horses. there could have been a moment of like silence and like we the audience witnessing what like there could have been close-ups of their eyes in silence. Could it have been cliche? Yes, but rather than just going straight into it, I was just like, wait, what? There's no it's like that's how we're going to do it. We're not, there's no build up or deep breath moment or anything. That just really caught me off guard. And I felt that it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, but when you think back on, especially I'll use another example in Gladiator, Maximus versus the Emperor, that final showdown. And like, it's nowhere near the nowhere near that caliber of class.
Well, the problem is also that they're also inherent to the history because with
and it's one thing
with Gladiator that everything with that last act is complete nonsensicalness. The actual real Commodus died being drowned in a freaking bathtub by a wrestler.
Well, from the story construction standpoint, from a story construction standpoint, when you take an adaptation and you want to add it and you want to adapt it from one medium to another, certain elements for the sake of dramatic effect, it has to really resonate to the viewer itself, especially with story progression, to make the viewer feel as if they're on the edge of their seat. Because like, if you're working for WWE and you're trying to, and you have these two franchise superstars on one of your big name television shows, and then one day these two superstars have never competed against one another in your company or anywhere in the world, and then ultimately, randomly, while a surprise to the viewer that they're gonna compete against one another one-on-one on an episode, I'll say Monday Night Raw, for example, it's not going to be, it doesn't feel as if it's anything special. No build up or anything to it. It's just surprise, this is our main event. And it was announced like, say 5 or 10 minutes prior. Like we go to commercial break, come back, and then the match begins. That's what this felt like.
Not a critique for a novel, like an actual fictional story, but the fact that it's an adaptation of an actual event is where you run into problems of, do you make this more extreme than what it was, or does that dilute the actual point you're making when it comes to history? Because they really tried to get the history right since they worked with Eric Yeager. So
from a historical, I'll use another moment in history, and one of my favorite films, one of my favorite films on history as a whole, but the last 20 minutes of Glory, that build up, and you feel the nerves, like you really feel the nerves of what's about to come. There should be that moment of tension, of what ultimately is destined to happen here in the last duel between these two characters, and and how high the stakes are, and what could possibly happen depending on who comes out triumphant.
I think I hear what you're saying. Like you're saying from a cinematic perspective.
Although what he's comparing is the Battle of Fort Wagner with the 54th Massachusetts, which was a large-scale battle, which was very much a suicide charge, versus a one-on-one duel, which is unfortunately a little bit difficult to actually hype up to that degree.
Well, go ahead, Michael. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, it sounds to me like you feel that the titular last duel is missing a bit of that, like, that, like, the pomp and circumstance, like,
exactly, the build up.
But I'd also argue that the duel itself is almost not even the point. Not really. I'd say it's more the court aspect, and by the end of the third act, Marguerite's story, which at this point she's just a witness to her own fate.
Oh, and the other thing about the duel, just at least what I kind of observed is that like there's nothing really sexy about this battle. It's two douchebags who are just kind of beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah, at a point, it's not a case of who's stronger or who's better. It's who's not exhausted from wearing all this dumb armor.
The armor though, I am always impressed with the production design and like the costuming of Ridley Scott's films.
They put a lot of effort into trying to get the 1300s era France pretty well, down to the haircuts, which a lot of people have made fun of. But if you actually look at the tapestry of the era, people
they wore really stupid hairstyles.
Incredibly dumb. Yeah.
Depending on the various parts of the world that they're in too.
This is also the same era where the worst swear word you could commit was saying "by the blood of Christ."
Wow.
Yeah, and even though there are a couple F-bombs in this,
which is a little bit anachronistic.
Whatever.
They were French, so.
Well, to be fair though, there was a guy from the 12th century whose name was John LaFucker. So hey, who knows? Maybe that works.
And when you even the set design, like even though you can tell that this is done professionally, it just doesn't feel it just doesn't feel on that same caliber level as that of again I say Gladiator Kingdom of Heaven.
Well, Gladiator is larger than life. This I feel is just life, which is it's not really as grand or romanticized. Like the whole movie as a whole really could not give less of a damn about the idea of chivalry, or at least the fact that the way we think of chivalry is complete nonsensicalness, which I totally approve.
Well, and then again, while this is a period piece, though, Tyler, this is the movies at the same time. I mean, even if this was like a excuse me, a bit by bit, it's like my sister when the first Harry Potter came out, like she was like a bit frustrated at various points, saying like that in the book it was da 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 da, and she was frustrated by it. Of course, she didn't know any better at the time that certain things couldn't be done due to adaptation purposes. It's like a good example I'll give is when Disney made Holes in 2002, 2003 with Shia LaBeouf, and they decided that they couldn't have in the book Stanley Shia LaBeouf's character was overweight, and he lost all this weight at the same time. With that being a kid, if it was an adult, they could look up options to see how that would resonate and transition from the book to the screen. But with a child, that would have been torture.
No, I know that, but that's a novelization of a good story that was fictional. In history, you can narrow the length. In history, when you adapt something, you can narrow the length or narrow the focus or make it broader, but you have to adhere it to some degree. Otherwise, you start going off into weird tangents. Like I can name history movies that were based on books that really do not at all adhere to what they were trying to say.
I'm just going to bring up real quick that Louis Sachar wrote the screenplay for the Holes movie.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Which is always interesting when that happens.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing when you know that you're going back into being in for something special. And at the same time, God bless these actors and these filmmakers, because they probably had a wonderful time making this piece of work.
It was interrupted by COVID too.
What's that?
It was interrupted by COVID too. They had to stop filming and then return to it.
Oh yeah, I remember.
There's nothing
really
particularly jarring about that. It's not like that cut was from this. Obviously, it seems pretty seamless.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Jodie Comer seems to be having the most fun, I'd say, besides Ben Affleck, of course.
Oh yeah.
I hope she kind of keeps going on to more and more stuff, because I know she had a smaller role in Free Guy earlier this year, and before that she was just known for being
Emmy winner. She's gonna be fine.
Yeah, Free Guy was the perfect transition from award-winning TV actress to big name film actress. She's
I
not
hope this
going
helps
anywhere.
her, although the box office might not.
Well, that's
Yeah,
which is
the box office is
Disappointing.
disappointing, but not surprising.
Not
I
particularly
was
surprising.
not surprised at all.
Well, yeah, this is based on a book from about 15 years ago, a historical event, and it's written by Ridley Scott, who is a very mixed bag of a director if I've ever seen one. Because sometimes
And also about a rape trial going up against a big one of the most anticipated horror sequels in October. It did kind of have a lot of the odds stacked against it.
They never really had a chance.
Not only that, but the 45 plus age demographic not really fully returning to theaters yet. At the same time, this had stiff competition from not only Halloween Kills, but from No Time to Die in addition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is a bit of like conspiracy theory out there that like the reason why this movie is released at like such a not great time is because Disney is obligated to give like the rest of its 20th century studio slate a theatrical run, because they still have to honor a contract between Fox and HBO that they get like first dibs for like home consumption. So like this couldn't go on Hulu or Disney Plus or anything. Not that it would be on Disney Plus.
I don't think it's that. I think it's I'm not sure they even knew what to do with it.
That's probably the most realistic answer.
Another thing is, I will say I don't think they didn't try, because I've seen some billboards here in LA, which is more than I can say for a lot of other their releases. So
also award buzz. I think they might have also been aiming for like Oscar buzz, which I can see in some
Oscar
respects.
bait. I mean,
I would not call it Oscar bait.
No,
really.
for various moments. I mean, this is Sir Ridley Scott after all, but at the same time, like various elements, just because it is a Ridley Scott film, some moments may be under consideration, but I don't see anything.
No, I'm not saying best director or best picture or anything, but
no, nothing like that. But even
was last time you would say made an Oscar bait movie? Because I wouldn't even say something like The Martian was, and that got quite a few nominations.
I thought The Martian was a comedy.
It was, but it got a lot of nominations when it came out. But I wouldn't call that Oscar bait either. Yeah. Again, Ridley Scott's such a really inconsistent director. He's got Blade Runner, he's got Alien, but he also has Gods of Egypt and so much other trash. The Counselor, yeah, that's classic.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Ridley Scott's filmography is.
You mean not Gods of Egypt, Exodus, Gods and Kings?
Yeah, those came out the same year, which makes it even more confusing.
Yeah,
and they both had the exact same problem of casting white actors in roles that were more. Egyptian.
And then Ridley Scott's comments of like saying, "Well, we couldn't cast Muhammad so and so."
He also has a way of shooting himself in the foot. If you look at anytime he brings up Blade Runner, he shoots himself in the foot horribly.
Yeah.
Especially Alien, like those stuff with like the Neil Blomkamp movie. He also shot himself in the foot there. Just don't let this man talk to the press, please.
And he even is throwing Noah Hawley under the bus by saying, "Oh, that Alien series not gonna be as good as my movie, so don't even try."
Yeah.
Also, speaking of shooting themselves in the foot, Matt Damon, please stop saying things.
Oh yeah.
And he said he was going to stop for a while, and then he didn't.
There is one elephant in the room we haven't mentioned yet, and it's kind of part of the reason why we're seeing this movie now as opposed to closer to release of the book. Because of the subject matter, and you can kind of tell that this movie is very inspired by the Me Too movement.
Well, that's what I was getting at earlier, where I said that it was been made when the book came out, it would not have gone in this direction of being more focused on Marguerite, especially towards the end of the movie. It would have been a more straight up, the hero saves the woman from the bad guy, which you can do that interpretation, but it would be a really bad one.
Yeah, that would be like, I don't know, the Patch Adams version of the story.
Yeah, which
Oh,
could have
boy.
happened.
Oh, I'm cringing.
Yeah, I'm much more okay with it being an ambiguous story of two terrible people being stuck with a woman that deserves a lot better than this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even the end credit bit where it's like, here's what happened to everybody. It's also just bleak. Where it's like, well, this person died. And this person died like 5 years later of something unrelated. And the main character, we don't know what happened to this person. It's like, yeah, even the end transcript is just miserable. In a good way.
I will bring up another standout performance. The French bulldog in that one scene of the movie. Couldn't take my eyes off of that little.
Oh,
I love French bulldogs. In case you didn't know,
they can be quite adorable.
This one was no exception to that rule.
So Tommy, I have to ask you, because Ridley Scott has 2 movies this year, potentially up for awards. Sight Unseen, which one do you think is more Oscar bait, this or House of Gucci?
Oh, wow. I think that depending on how the final product turns out, I think that due to I think if I had to choose based on how each one looks and knowing what I know now from the last Duel, I think certain categories would be more friendly or keen for awards over others. But with Lady Gaga's name attached to Gucci, and not only with the all-star cast to boot, I think that one has more of a potential by a slightly margin, just because of what we know and how and the look in comparison to that of the last Duel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But can I just bring out how weird that is? He has another movie coming out within a month. I know this is COVID caused, but it's incredibly weird.
Oh,
the last time this happened was, at least if we're talking about like the Oscar race, the year that Steven Soderbergh had Aaron Brockovich and Traffic both up for Best Director.
Yes.
It's close for an act. I can think of also an acting example, which would be 2007 with Leonardo DiCaprio being both in Blood Diamonds and The Departed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is a very solid example.
Or wasn't there a recent example where it was like, oh god, it was in the last couple of years where it was like Scarlett Johansson and Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, that was Marriage Story and Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, that was it. We're like, that was another weird one. Like,
Michael Douglas, 1987, Fatal Attraction on Wall Street.
Mm.
Yeah, that's good too. Yeah.
And then Alexander Desplat for the scores for the both scores that he was nominated for was 2015. I want to say.
I believe there was also a time where Sandy Powell, the costume designer, was nominated for like 2 at the same time.
I do remember
that. That happens more frequently when it's a creative.
I think it was The Favorite and one of the movies she did that year.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Mike?
There's another one. Alicia Vikander for Ex Machina and The Danish Girl.
They did
one that is a much better movie.
Yes,
they did.
She won for Ex Machina. You can't change my mind.
That's my head canon.
Well, not only that, but they did her an incredible disservice for putting her the wrong roles. The wrong roles went to the wrong category. One should have been
lead, the other should have been.
Exactly.
That's the problem with the Oscars always.
And that would have been a Jamie Foxx 2004 type of scenario where you're nominated for Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor in the same show.
Yeah, I can be here all day about examples.
Tom Cruise for Collateral.
Yeah, the way they do.
I'm still a little annoyed by that.
The way they do Best Actor and then Best Supporting Actor has always just befuddled me because they'll always look at like a romantic movie and somehow see one as the supporting role. Like, anyone who's seen the movie Carol, can someone please explain to me how Kate Blanchett is somehow the lead actress and Rooney Mara is the supporting one? Because they get about the same amount of screen time. Come on.
Also, Haley Steinfeld in True Grit, when she's clearly the lead of that movie.
Exactly.
She's not the most top billed actress, but she may as well be the main character.
She is the primary focus character of that movie.
Yeah,
Exactly.
They just nominated her they just shoved her in the supporting category because of her age, and I still get annoyed.
Going back to the comparison between Last Duel and House of Gucci, my prediction is that while the Last Duel will be nominated for all the below the line stuff, I think Jodie Comer and Ben Affleck have the best chance for actor nominations.
Yeah,
but House of Gucci is going to be taking, the best picture, best director.
No, it's gonna get the fashion, the best, costumes, and maybe best cinematography or something like that. But I don't see it going that high.
If any acting buzz comes out of Last Duel, I think it has a more friendlier chance with the HFPA than it does with the Academy.
Another thing I will say is that House of Gucci seems a lot more
commercial,
awards friendly.
Yeah, that is.
And like the voters, I think, will enjoy House of Gucci more than they would the Last Duel.
I can see people being advertising it like, a more dramatic version of Devil Wears Prada compared to Rashomon meets a court drama meets Straw Dogs meets The Duelist.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like this is Ridley Scott's American Hustle.
I say it's not as good as this movie, but if you convince me that he was dying next week, I would believe you this is his last movie as some sort of weird tie back to The Duelist in the same way that The Irishman feels like a tie back to The Goodfellas, even though this is nowhere near as good as The Irishman.
Right. This I guess we'll go to final thoughts then. I first of all, I love the discussion we had about this movie. It was a lot more nuanced than I was expecting.
Like the movie itself.
Yeah, like the movie itself. And while I do see a lot of the criticisms, I think just overall, I just found myself engaged with the story, with the craft of the filmmaking. It's not really Scott's best, but I think
his best includes Blade Runner and Alien. How could you ever top those?
Don't forget about Gladiator.
I would say it's his best latter day film, because outside of The Martian, which I think is his best post Gladiator film, this is like at that level.
Yeah, actually, I haven't burned enough bridges, but I'll just say it right now. I don't think much of Gladiator. I think it's a good movie, but I think winning Best Picture was a real leap in logic for me. It's a fun popcorn movie, but it's not like, oh, this is Best Picture of the year. No.
So Tyler, final thoughts on The Last Duel?
Final thoughts. It's sort of a movie that just was created to appeal to people like me, which is a person who read the actual history book and then goes, I remember that paragraph. They actually read the book and actually did the citations and the sources. Yay. Which, side note about that book, if you read the book, Eric Yeager does a hell of a lot with the most minimal of data. Like, he's freaking at one point pulling out, like, here is like the tax records of Jean and Jacques that can tell you exactly where they were around this time because of the land lease data, all this minor, like, tax worthy stuff that somehow tells you a lot of stories, which reminds me a lot of the best book I've read in the last couple of years, which was the history book Hallie Rubenholtz The Five, which does the exact same thing with census data. I'll never be not impressed with what historians can do with the most minimal of information, and I'm happy when a movie just takes that information and makes it in a movie that's actually accurate.
Now I kind of want to read the book because I'm curious how close these two.
Incredibly so, except when he gets to the end, a lot of the third act stuff is probably the most exaggerated with Marguerite, because even Yeager has to keep saying we don't know for sure, although he errs on the side of caution and says it's probably what the movie depicts. And even he said in interviews he's totally fine with how the movie goes with it because he believes that angle, but he just can't prove it because from 700 years ago almost.
Right. Tommy, I'll go to you next. Your final thoughts.
My final thoughts on Last Duel are that, again, I say this is it's semi decent to look at, but once again, it breaks no new ground for Ridley Scott, and from a screenplay adapted by the Academy Award winning writers for original screenplay of Good Will Hunting. It just really, when you look at the ingredients in making what could be a motion picture masterpiece, it's a big letdown. And from an adaptation standpoint, while the argument can be made of being faithful to the book, there's no reason why this film could not have been cut by 35 minutes. It just went on way too long. And the flashback, the moments of flashback, it just could have been done to an extent to where you really take that cinematic element, adapt it from one medium to another, really take that next level and showcase it as something unique, while not to deter or to distract from what ultimately showcases to be what Margaret is going through.
And Hayden?
Yeah, so I hear everything being said in terms of criticism about it. And I will say that I actually did personally enjoy, not enjoy again. Hold on, just edit this part out. I will say that for all of its repetition, that was actually something that I was personally engaged by, and I wasn't ever really bored or fatigued by the end in the way that some people do. And that's just a personal thing for me. I thought it was a lot better than I think I expected going in. So I would actually like to wait for it to come out on digital and see if I can maybe look at some of those scenes in more detail and see what minor details were changed from the different perspectives. I would really be interested in doing that as a project at some point, honestly.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. You know, one of the best things about movies is that we don't always have to agree, and those are the discussions that are usually the most fulfilling. And yeah, to wrap up this podcast, I think this is probably one of the most fulfilling discussions I've had over like these two movies in a very long time. So I have to thank you guys for that. Now before we get out of here, Tommy, where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, well, let me say first, it's great to be a part of those sentiments, Mike, and I had a really wonderful discussion as well. So thank you for saying that. That's fantastic, and it's an honor to be here as a result. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube at the T Money 35, Twitter at T_Hughes 35, and I'm trying to think. Pinterest, no. But basically, Twitter and Twitter at T_Hughes 35, Instagram and YouTube, the T Money 35. Like, share, subscribe, follow me, and I who knows, I might follow you back.
And Tyler?
Well, you can always find me on Twitter yammering on about history at BioWD. I'm usually discussing history with a good friend of mine, his YouTuber and historian named Cynical History. In fact, I probably gonna end up talking with him about this movie since he's pretty curious about it. I do a review about it one day, who knows. And I'm always doing history related stuff on my YouTube channel, Debunk File. In fact, at the moment I'm currently editing or helping to edit the almost 2.5 hour video about Jack the Ripper, which is based on the book I mentioned before, the Five by Hallie Rubenhold. So that'll could be coming out eventually. I don't know when, maybe early November.
Nice. And Hayden, where can everyone find you?
I can be found on Twitter, where I mostly discuss horror and musicals, and on Insta. And my Twitter account is at the Hayden Wilder. My Instagram is just at Hayden Wilder.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. You can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on Podchaser. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Marquee. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.